For more than 4 months now, we've been seeing protests in and around major cities against police brutality. But today, those demonstrations took a new turn here in Boston. Dozens of protesters chained themselves to concrete-filled barrels on Interstate 93 in both Medford and Milton, blocking the roads into Boston right at the heart of rush hour. About 30 people were arrested, and they're facing trespassing and disorderly conduct charges, among others. Those protesters spent several hours in court awaiting proceedings, but even after some members of the group were released, they declined to comment to us. So were the events of today an effective form of protest? Joining me now to talk about that are Brock Satter and Martin Henson, both activists in the Black Lives Matter movement. Guys, thanks for being here.
Yeah, you go.
What was your take on today's protests? Good idea by the protesters?
Well, when you think about what civil disobedience is, if you have a law that is unjust and you are not doing anything to correct that, what options do you leave people with?
So what are, as you know, they're violating a law involving their presence on the roadways. That's not the law that they're seeking to overturn or seeking to alter, right? They have a different law in mind. Yeah. What do you think, Brock?
Well, I think that regardless of what you may think about any particular tactic, that if there wasn't this killing of unarmed civilians, and then on top of that, no indictment, not even an indictment for these police who are committing these killings.
Michael Brown,
I'm talking about Michael
Garner.
Brown, Eric Garner, and even here in Massachusetts, I just read an article the other day in the Herald where we had 55 officer-involved shootings and killings in the last decade, not one indictment. So, and there's hundreds of cases throughout the country. So. This has generated a deep well of sentiment, of distrust, of disillusion in the government, and so, or in the rule of law, really. So, but if some of that was addressed, I don't think you would be seeing people doing this. So, I personally have a different strategy on how to go about it, but. We share the same goals in terms of, trying to eradicate the racism and the institutionalized racism.
Let me ask you about your strategy. You guys are both part of the MLK Day Action Committee, and you're hosting a march, or you're organizing a march right on Monday. Tell me about that march and about how it fits with the strategy that you have in mind.
Well, in my opinion, the most important thing that has to be done is to just really demonstrate the fact that there's a deep and broad opposition to what's going on in this country, and to allow people to express that. We don't necessarily need to do anything other than simply show our numbers. So that's the one thing that we're trying to do is with this march on Monday. It's going to be, we've sought actually a permit from the city to give us permission to march.
Have you gotten it yet?
We were waiting to get any official word, but they more or less have told us we can march.
So you're meeting at, I'm sorry to interrupt you, you're meeting at the old State House at 1 p.m. on Monday?
Yes.
How many people do you expect to show up?
1,100. That's what the numbers look like now, maybe more people later.
I am curious about what you two think of the way Mayor Walsh and the Boston Police Department have responded to protests in Boston to date. What's your sense of how they and perhaps other members of the political structure, like Governor Baker, before him Governor Patrick, what do you think of that response?
Well, I think it's very interesting when you look at the way that they present things in the media or they release these statements that is oftentimes very dismissive. It talks about managing people that are peaceful, and it creates a climate that people need to be monitored and they need to be observed in a way that I'm not aggressive, I'm not hurting anyone. So that type of language is not conducive to the type of relationship that we need to have with each other.
When you say you see dismissive language, can you think of anything? You guys, actually, I don't know about you, Brock, but Martin, you were involved in the first night protest, right? Was there dismissive language attached to that you saw? Well,
it was statements such as police allowed the protest to happen. From what my understanding of what a protest is, for it to be allowed would be a demonstration. It wouldn't be a protest. It's a voice of dissent against things that we disagree with. So for the police to say, oh, we allowed that, why would you need to create that type of dialogue? I don't understand that.
Brock, do you feel that dismissiveness as well?
Oh, I was also part of the first night action, and there was definitely dismissive language coming from both the police commissioner and the mayor about that, saying, well, although we have the right to protest, we shouldn't protest.
Maybe not the best time and place.
And, you know, there was concern whether, you know, this would scare the kids. We had kids in our demonstration. You know, this is an issue that affects kids, and where children as young as, I read an article, there was second graders protesting in Bedford. You know, this cuts very deep into society and just the ideas of a young person growing
Brock Satter,
up.
I apologize. No, this is, come back, okay? Brock Satter, Martin Henson, thank you both for being here. We appreciate it.